So, I'm live, I guess. I I have mixed feelings about this. First of all, I don't know if anybody's gonna watch this. Um, Worst case scenario, I upload it afterwards to YouTube and somebody watches it there. But um, I'm going over my sketchbook, and it's actually the only sketchbook I've ever finished. Um, and it took me 4 months, I think. It was I I can't count. But it was from February 27th to May 8th of last year. And this was actually an assignment I had while in university. We had to buy this specific sketchbook. I think it's like 80 something pages or a little bit more. And we had to fill every single page but using different methods. And I genuinely believe that because it was an assignment and because of the sort of like restrictions that we had to follow, I think that's the only reason this is the only sketchbook I've ever finished. That being said, I do think that there are some good ones in here. Let me show you guys. Probably my favorite page, if I can find it, is this one. I absolutely love this page. I'm obsessed with it. Get kind of up close and personal for you guys. But yeah, I absolutely loved making this page. I had a lot of space to fill, and it was inspired by, well, I don't think you guys can see it. But this painting back here, I did clouds with very similar line work to this. And like I said, I had a lot of pages that needed to be filled. And I figured what better way than doing a 2-page spread. So this is definitely one of my favorites. I ended up scanning this and turning it into a print because, like I said, I was just obsessed with it. And it took me um, relatively long. I would say like a good 2-3 hours at least. But it didn't feel long. It felt very soothing, and they are supposed to be clouds. Hopefully that comes across. But let's start at the first page, and I just want to say, not all of these pages are great. Some of them are pretty bad. But I think, that's the kind of point of uh, oh, okay, cool. I was so worried that people wouldn't get that it was clouds, but at the same time I feel like it's pretty enough where it didn't matter. um but anyways, yeah, not all of the pages are as pretty as that one, but it's a sketchbook. Not all of the pages have to be pretty, and I think that's honestly one of the reasons why it's taken me so long to finish a sketchbook, because I constantly feel like each page has to be a work of art when it doesn't. So this was the first page where the anatomy is just horrible. But it was just a really quick sketch I made when I was bored in class and needed to fill it up. Honestly, I was just thinking of Jason Todd, so that's why there's a mask. That is so true. That is very true. I've made a lot of work that I really don't like, but other people seem to love. And I think, as artists, you're always going to be your worst critic, and that is just like prime example. Like sometimes you'll make something that you think is not great, and then other people will love it. So, what a great lesson to not judge your work too harshly. Um this is a drawing I made of my dad. Pretty simple. The angle is kind of weird, but it's not as bad. And I just did like a little blue line with Posca. I'm sorry about that. I have a dog. He likes to bark. This was the next page. Yeah, he does. He was loving that hat, and he wanted me to take a picture of him, so I did. So I based the sketch off the picture. Um, Next page after that, just a quick little drawing, fill up some space. I have this thing where when I draw without references, I kind of feel like all my people look exactly the same. So I've like vaguely drawn this girl in probably like 10 other sketches that I've made. And honestly, I'm not mad at it. It is what it is, and it's not the worst thing in the world. And then I just use some crayons to add a little pop of color. Next up, Lucky Cat. I have two of these. Fun fact that I don't know if anybody knows. I'm actually part Chinese, so I grew up having like Lucky Cats round, going to restaurants and stuff that had Lucky Cats. So I have one at home, and then my parents also have one at their business. So it just felt right to add a little Lucky Cat in my sketchbook. And I just added a bit of red because Lucky Cat always has some red. I was gonna add some yellow, but then I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. Then I did a lot of like marker sketches because I have a lot of markers that I don't really use when I'm doing like actual artwork like um I don't know. I feel like I just never use them. So I thought sketchbook was a perfect place to use it. Um Well, it depends. For my sketchbook, for the most part, I did like observation only. Like this is straight up from observation. Literally just like staring outside of my classroom and sort of guessing the proportions. I think drawing from observation is kind of fun and kind of challenging, but it helps a lot in the long run of like getting used to proportions and how things look and translating it from like 3D to like onto a page. But at the same time, like when I'm actually like working on paintings, I will use like a grid method. That's what I started using like when I was first painting because that was like the easiest for me. And then after that, I started using transfer paper, which speeds up the process a lot compared to the grid method, especially because I get kind of like, I guess, confused sometimes with like the placements of the boxes. So sometimes I'll draw part of a box onto a different box. I don't know if that makes sense. So I started doing using transfer paper more. But fun fact, I'm actually getting a projector, which I'm really excited about. It's supposed to come today, I think. But I'm gonna be using that for my paintings, just because since I am working on a little bit of a larger scale now, it's a little bit harder to do a transfer method using transfer paper or grid method. So it's just speeding up my process a bit. But I still do love drawing from observation. And I think as much as it is challenging, it is very beneficial in the long run. So highly recommend. Sorry, I kind of ramble, which is why I was nervous to do a live. So if you ever think I'm talking too much, let me know. So part of the assignment was using gouache. Um, I do not like gouache. I love acrylic. I love watercolor. And gouache is kind of like a mix of both, and I somehow hate it. It's, I don't know, I think it's something about the texture and um, just that how it reactivates with water. I'm not sure I like that method. Maybe I just need more practice. Yeah, projector. I used a projector once, well, while I was in university, and it was so helpful and made it go so much faster. And ever since then, I've been like craving one, and I found one on Amazon that was like $45 and had pretty good reviews. So I was like, yeah, I need this. And yeah, going live, I saw that it helps a lot to get like my work out there. I've just never been one for like speaking to people. I'm naturally very shy and very quiet, so everything about going live is kind of like nerve wracking. But I'm slowly getting over it. But yeah, I made this with gouache. Not really a fan. And then I added some ink on top. I just realized my camera's mirrored. So it says, may the scales for no. May the scales be forever in your favor. I promise I know how to read. Um so yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one, but it was nice to fill up my sketchbook, and I don't know. I like drawing scales for some reason, even though I'm not great at it. I just think they're kind of fun. And yeah, that's true. I'll only get more comfortable with practice. Like, I've been making videos on YouTube for a year now, and I can definitely see a difference from like the first video I posted on here to like my latest. Like, I'm getting a lot more comfortable talking on camera, so it is working. It's just taking a bit. Um, this I made. Hold on, it's kind of sunny. Um, just a quick sketch. The proportions are kind of off, but it's fine. Um, it just says "you all right" at the top. Um, honestly, oh, and it says "sure" over here. And honestly, this day I was just feeling like kind of in my feelings about it. So I made kind of like, I wouldn't say it's sad, but just like very representational of like how I was feeling that day. And I added a little bit of gouache in the back just for a pop of color. I felt like that might be fun. Next up, I'm really into Formula One. I've been a fan since I was a kid. I grew up watching it with my dad. So I there's maybe like two more sketches after this related to Formula One, because why not? Lewis Hamilton, not the best drawing of him, but it is a drawing. Um, honestly, I just really like him as a driver, as a person, the work that he does to help minorities, his advocacy. It's all like really inspiring, and he truly is my role model, because like I totally understand what it's like trying to make something of yourself when, the world, well, I wouldn't say the world, but when you're like coming from a background where it's like you don't really have enough money, not enough access to a lot of things. So I'm totally inspired by his story, and it's like part of the reasons why I did push myself so hard to get to university, to really do the best that I could. Um, fun fact, when I went to university, I was really worried about how I would pay for everything. I did apply to actual like art schools, but art schools are pretty expensive, so I went to a university that had an art department, which was a very different vibe from actual art schools, but I did end up loving it a lot more, and it was a lot cheaper, and I ended up getting a lot of scholarships. So for the most part, like my 4 years at university were fully paid by scholarships. So I was really lucky. um Next up, quick sketch of the car, which is maybe not the best. I don't really sketch or draw cars very often. I did end up doing an illustration of a Formula One car, also again related to Lewis Hamilton and like his rise from like being a kid to, you know, Formula One driver. And this was like my little mini practice test for that. This is just fun, colorful. Not much to explain here. I used markers and then some Posca paint pens. Um, I just had a lot of fun with this one. I used to do a lot of Zentangles when I was a kid, so this was like me going back to my roots, pretty much. Similar case here, just me going back to my roots. I have a lot of love for like topography. Topography? No, that's not the word. For like writing and like Zentangles, and I thought this was kind of fun. Um, I don't really love the writing, but oh, thank you. No, you can obviously. I appreciate you for even being here just for a little bit. Thank you for watching. Um, hearts. Next up, I made this. I have a lot of love, like I said, for writing and like lettering. I think it's really fun to see how people take on that aspect of illustration. Um, so I decided to write out a, I don't know if it's a popular saying, but it's a saying I heard a lot growing up in Spanish, which is más sabe el diablo por viejo que por diablo, which means that the devil knows more because of how old he is rather than because he's the devil. And I think it's, I guess it's kind of a weird saying, but to me it's just like you learn a lot just from age and just from how much you have to go through. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty cool saying. And I tried out some different stuff, but I think my favorite part is just this bottom part, which was pretty fun to do. Next up, these are actual sketches I did for a project. I was trying to work out like thumbnails, what something I might want to do for a project that I had in mind. I ended up going for this one, but I did use a similar idea to this for a different project afterwards. But this is the one that I actually ended up going with. I did an ink, graphite, and charcoal illustration, which was really fun to make. I don't think I've posted that one on here except like in like my actual like YouTube videos, like clip of it. These were just some observation drawings that I made of my niece, which is honestly pretty accurate for me doing it like while I was walking around following her. And I don't know what you would call this in English, but it's like the power lines. I think that's what it's called. But yeah, I was walking around, saw the power lines, decided to draw it because just because, and also because I needed to fill up space in my sketchbook. I started adding like little bits of blue for the color of the sky, but I never actually got around to doing more than that. But I kind of like that it's only partially blue in some places. Next up, a lemon. Also, just from observation, I had just a pencil on hand that day, and then I ended up coloring it a different day, just using some random color pencils I had. This I did during class while I was a little bored and I was just thinking about Beauty and the Beast. Um, Not much to explain for this one. Okay, this is gonna be a 2-page spread. It is so windy today. Oh my god. Here. This one's kind of long in an awkward way. So we have the street, some houses, and then the sky. This was pretty fun to do because like usually you'll see people work long but this way, and I have worked long horizontally but never vertically, so this was a nice kind of challenge. I did like a similar thing with like line work to the clouds, then the houses, and I didn't worry too much here, like proportion wise. It wasn't gonna be like accurate to live, like seeing it in real life. Um, but it was still fun to do and just like focusing on line. I have a lot of love for like line work and ink line work, like hatching and cross hatching. I think it's all like so much fun, and what a great way to like add texture and add value without going like crazy with color. Next up, also vertical. This is a self portrait, and this is when I was going um, to the Getty Museum. For those of you who don't know, when you go to the Getty, there's like this little tram. Sorry, one second. Sorry, guys, I'm not used to talking that much. Okay, I'm good. So when you go to the Getty, there's like a little tram that will take you up from the parking slash entrance to the actual museum, because it's like sort of like up in a hill. So that was me in the tram. It was a picture my mom took, um, because I went with her that day. Yeah, it was just a fun little portrait. I also ended up putting tape over it, which you can kind of see. Because I drew it with pencil, it was just kind of transferring everywhere. And there's a spray you can use. So I think it's called a fixative fix something like that, where you'll spray it over graphite, charcoal, whatever. So it won't smudge, but you know, because it was a sketchbook, I just used some clear tape. Next up, this was just a little drawing I made from a picture I had from a long time ago when my parents got the chance to go to Italy, Venice. Um, so I did a little sketch on the landscape. It was a quick little thing. I like working very loose. I think when I'm working naturally, I like for actual like projects and paintings, I try to be very precise and purposeful with my lines. But at the same time, I think it's really nice to let yourself go loose and draw very loose and make sort of gestures to really, you know, just focus on like the actual motion and, you know, just like letting yourself have a little bit more freedom. I think that's really fun and a nice way to sort of relax from like your usual projects or the usual stress that you might have when it comes to making art, because there's like this sense that you know make something that's perfection, you know. Sorry guys. Next up, self portrait. Well, not self portrait, sorry. Portrait of my mom. This was her when she was a lot younger, many years before she had me. But I had this picture of her, um, and she just looked really cool in it. And red is her favorite color. So I added red with a Posca marker afterwards. But yeah, this was a fun little drawing to make, and she loved seeing it. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one, especially adding the little lines on her face. I think that part was just a lot of fun. And lines are always a great way to add value when you're not like exactly like shading to make it like very smooth or like using color. Now, this page is just extremely hectic, and this is really the part of my sketchbook where I just got bored. So here I used markers, and then here I mainly use the Posca pens. And a lot of this was, you know, filling up space, having fun. Um, I didn't really pressure myself to do anything out of this world, which was a really nice break from what I usually do. So it was a nice way to relax and really remind myself, you know, not all art has to be this sort of masterpiece. Sometimes you can just make stuff for fun. Next up, I was working on a sort of like cursive alphabet, but I accidentally made the letters too big, so the bottom part is just extremely cramped. But this was sort of me working on ideas for for a different project I was doing at the time that I ended up not really using much of this for. Well, I used some of it, but I did change it up. Um, but yeah, I love writing in cursive. So this just felt fun and like, yeah, a way to fill up space. Next up, I did a little cursive moment with my niece's name. And I actually had a painting underneath this. It was a gouache painting, and it was just horrible. So I ended up gessoing over it, which you might be able to tell. I don't know if it really shows up that well on camera, but you can definitely see like the brush. I ended up using a ink pen, like one of those I forget how you would call it. It's like a brush tip, and just some markers to add a little extra detail, I guess you could say. Then there was this fun one. I actually ended up using this for a different project I also made in university. I think I made it the same semester, if not the semester after that. But this is an actual bike that my dad had like sort of mashed together, which was just like really fun and kind of funny to see. So I just wanted to try it. Then I call this the explosion because I don't know, it's red, it's yellow, and it's kind of like an explosion. And again, this was just me having fun with line, having fun with color, and yeah. Um, these weren't necessarily sketches I made for a project, but they were related to a project. We had to make an illustration based off a saying. And I was thinking of sayings in Spanish, like no seas lenteja, which is like don't be lazy. But like in English, a direct translation would be don't be a lentil. So I made a little lentil. And then it says, ahí voy, espérame, which is I'm going, wait for me. So I thought that was funny. Another saying that I was thinking of was ponte las pilas, which is direct translation is like put on your batteries, which is just like, get to it, do something, like be active, I guess you could say, like get to work. And I was kind of thinking of it like a sales advertisement. So it says compra ahora, buy now, and no seas flojo, don't be lazy, which is like what ponte las pilas is kind of like don't be lazy, go do your work. Next up, this page is kind of fun, but like because of the method I use here. So this is an illustration I made. I printed it out, and what I did was I did a tape transfer. So what it is, you basically put tape over the piece that you want to transfer, and then you go and you put the piece of tape with the piece of paper that you want to transfer, and you put it into a bowl. I think it had to be a bowl of hot water or warm water, something like that. And what will happen is the actual paper will sort of disintegrate, wash away, but the ink will stay onto the tape, and you can sort of transfer images like that, which I thought was really fun. And I actually did this as um, a replacement, I guess you could say, because one of the methods that we had to try out was this pen. I forget what it's called, but it basically does the same thing as this, where you put the pen, you draw over where you want to, what part of the paper you want to transfer, and the ink of the pen will sort of like moisten the paper, and then you sort of squish it on, and it transfers. Now, me, I personally didn't want to spend like, I think the pen was like $20, and it wasn't something I thought I would use again, so I decided to do this instead. And here I used the Posca paint pen, and here just some markers I had. Next up, it says, yeah, I'm not doing so great. And it's just somebody laying awkwardly on the couch. And at this point, I was halfway through my college semester. And this semester in particular, I was taking 5 art classes, which I had not done before. And it was from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I was just really going through it, taking like 5 studio classes in one day, which was crazy of me to do. Um, but, in hindsight, it was crazy, but I didn't have that knowledge that it would be so chaotic. So, yeah, halfway through the semester, I was really feeling the pressure. Um, so, yeah, if you are ever going to school for art, maybe don't take 5 art classes at once if you can avoid it. just for like peace of mind. Um, there's not much to it. It says ciao, bonjour, bonsoir, bonsoir. Um, this I don't think there was really much thought process for this. I just thought it would be fun to draw some hands and have people saying hello. And we have more line. That is the moon with some clouds. I don't know how I feel about this, mainly because of the lines here. I just wish it was more even, I guess you could say. But not bad. And it was kind of fun drawing all those lines. It's very, when you draw this many like lines, it gets to a point where it's almost like peaceful and relaxing. And we are back to the clouds. I went over the clouds at the start, but yeah, I had a lot of fun making these. Even though it did take me a while, it's generally probably the best thing I drew in the sketchbook, which is why I ended up scanning it and actually making it into a print. Just because something about it feels so, I guess, kind of peaceful, serene. So yeah, big fan of the 2-page spread. And here we have some more of those transfers that I was talking about. These are actually from the same illustration that I printed out from the last one. And they're just little bits and pieces of my room, actually, that I drew out. And the rest is just little pen scribbles I made of some other drawings that I had made previously. And just like random trinkets and stuff that I have in my room. Here it is, the other Formula One sketch. I tried doing the car. Not really sure that I like it. Just like the proportions of it, definitely off. But like I said, it's a sketchbook. Not everything has to be a work of art. But I was still pretty proud of like challenging myself, because I think that's like the most important thing I've learned like these past 4 years of going to university, graduating. Sometimes you really just need to take a step outside of your box and try something new, and who knows, you might be great at it, you might love it. And here I did the líneas of Nazca, which are the Nazca lines of Peru. Really old lines that are made into these shapes. There are some more, but I drew just some of them. So like the monkey, the colibri, the spider. I did have a little bit of a mess up on that one, but they're really interesting lines that I'm very curious about. And it's just very cool to see the shapes and the geometric of it all. Then we have this, Begin Again. This was just something inspired by one of the art pieces. Well, yeah, one of the art pieces I made while I was in high school. It's very simple, but still, I kind of like the simplicity for this one at least. And then we have a fire truck. Not much to explain with this one. I saw a fire truck and I just think they're pretty cool. So I decided to try and draw it. Um, which honestly wasn't that bad. I feel like fire trucks are very square, so that made it a little bit easier. This was a drawing I made from a picture I took while I was visiting the Getty. The Getty has some really beautiful pieces of work, but honestly, just a beautiful view in general. So if you guys have the chance to go, I highly recommend. Um, I think at this point is when I really stopped caring whether or not they were good. So I have a thing about Roman numerals. I just think they're a lot of fun. I was taught Roman numerals at a young age, so it's just gotten to be something I'm used to doing. Then some cursive. I did some really big cursive letters a couple of times. Some more lines, some more cursive. I cut this out of a magazine, added some tape, and then did little lines. Some more cursive. Ooh, this one's fun. So this one, I first did a light layer of this sort of watercolor crayon that I had to get like this nice kind of yellow. And then I used a red ink pen to do this dragon. I really like the combination of like yellow and red. I think it's a fun duo. Again, at this point, there was a lot of just like magazine, little bits of magazine taped in, and just lines, and just a little graphite snake and some flowers. I do really love this drawing though. I think this is definitely a cute little drawing. My niece and nephew. It was not drawn from observation. I had a picture of them and I just decided to not draw any of the background, just focus on them. And this I just did with like a regular lead pencil. Then we have a random tiger. Eh, tiger. Sure. Some more Roman numerals. I promise, guys, I'm almost done. This semester I was taking a lot of anatomy and figure drawing, so I was practicing that, trying out some different poses. Then I saw this dress on TikTok and it was I think a Vivienne Westwood thing, some of her like older dresses. But I just thought like it was such a gorgeous dress and I had to try and draw it. Um I don't know if I did it justice, but it's definitely one of my favorite things to look at from the sketchbook. Then we have some flowers. These are plumerias, which are just really pretty flowers. Then I did try it again with gouache. I wanted to give it a second chance, and I was still not a fan, unfortunately. I see the way people paint with gouache, and it truly is like beautiful. But I certainly do not have the hang of it. But this was my attempt, and I had just like taped it off at the border. This is another 2-page spread that came after I was doing a rewatch of Agents of Shield. Fun fact, kind of a nerd. Um, but basically, this is from a season 1 quote. I think it was season 1, where they were talking about the first law of thermodynamics, and it's no energy in the universe is created and then is destroyed. Every part of us now was once a part of some other thing, thousands and thousands of other beautiful things that were just as terrified as we are. So I did a little space theme, just using some color pencils, some markers. I did try making a sort of like stamp out of an eraser, but that didn't really work as much as I wish it had. Um, but yeah. Next up, some more graphite drawings. I did wish I would have put in a clear um, tape layer over this, but we have a skull. Um, I feel like anatomical skulls are just like really fun to draw. Then we have again Ghost Rider from Agents of Shield. Again, I was just in that sort of era of my life. And another self portrait. I feel like when I always get to the point where like I'm kind of bored, don't really know what to draw, I go back to drawing myself. I remember a professor I had for a figure drawing class, and he said the best reference is yourself. Like you always have yourself on hand. So like take the picture, use yourself as reference. And it's so handy, and it's pretty much what I do for a lot of my work, which is why a lot of my work is also self portraits. This was just like really quick marker drawing. It says Te amo, I love you. Then I'm pretty sure these were supposed to be dahlias. Um, Kind of messy, kind of chaotic, but it is what it is. Um, this is another page I gessoed over, and I used marker and ink just to sort of draw my daily journey to actually get to my university. We have to go through a lot of like the sort of freeway, but it's next to mountains, so I just think the mountains are really nice to look at every time I would go. It felt very peaceful. Then some more markers, just making a lot of lines. Um, this one, I was trying to test out how I wanted to write Happy Mother's Day to my mom, like on a card. Figured this would be the best place to sketch it first. I don't like how I did the M, but everything else I'm not mad at. Then I did my nephew's name. I tried to go like a more like fun route, bright, colorful, um, and I had a lot of fun. It's a mix of color pencil and marker. Then we have a few pages left, guys. A few pages. Um, I did this little drawing of my hands because I'm always doing this to people. Um, I just think it's such a fun way to make a heart, even though I grew up, doing this. I just feel like this has more of a heart shape. But yeah, I did this with marker. Then we have a little teddy bear drawing. Honestly, for some reason, this teddy bear kind of creeps me out. I don't know what it is about it. But I did color pencil and some marker. I think the black is also marker as well instead of ink. Then we have this, and this is actually a design of a tiger that I used before on one of my ceramics. Fun fact, I used to make ceramics. While I was in university, I took a class on it. I made a lot of stuff, but I made this like series of bowls for the Chinese New Year, and it was the year of the tiger. I think it was the tiger. Um, so one of those bowls had the tiger sort of wrapping around it. So, and I just did this with marker. Okay, last 3 pages. This was just me having fun. I used black acrylic paint, red Posca, and just went crazy with line and negative space, and it was a lot of fun. It was sort of influenced by one of these like coloring books that somebody gave me, and it was just a lot of fun to make and just focusing like on color. Similar vibe, but I don't really like how the yellow showed up on the black. It was just kind of transparent and not in a fun way. And finally, the very last page, which is magazine clippings and some marker. And it says, "Change is coming. Will you be there?" And honestly, very on par with how my year came after that. There was a lot of change. I graduated. I started my YouTube channel the semester after this, and it was all very chaotic but very fun. Um, so yeah, this is the only sketchbook I have ever finished. My name in the back, and despite how like stressful it was as an assignment to get it done on time, it was a lot of fun to make and just letting myself be free and draw whatever I wanted, even if it wasn't good, even if I didn't like it. Um, so yeah, I think that's like my number one advice for finishing a sketchbook, because I feel like a lot of people pressure themselves into feeling like a sketchbook has to be masterpiece after masterpiece. And sometimes it can really just be chaotic and bad. But as long as like you let yourself have that space where you can just experiment and have fun without the pressure of having it be good. So yeah, that is the end for my little sketchbook live stream. Um, I hope you guys liked it. I don't know how I feel about making another live stream. Maybe I'll do it a few times a year, but not as scary as I thought it would be. So, thank you guys for watching. Let's see if I know how to end this. Hmm.